Hello and welcome back to Project Guts. In the last video, we added a second pump to our water resources module, and now we want to add some instrumentation, some data boxes and a graph in order to be able to collect data to see how our two different pumps are working. So the first thing I need to do is remix this model and rename it. I'm going to say second pump and data, so that now the model belongs to me and my changes will be saved. You sometimes get that error message. You can just ignore that. So the first thing to do to add instrumentation is to scroll down here to the interface, click on Edit Interface, and then Create Widget. So first let's create data boxes. There's one, click on it, and we want to call this pump 1. Let's call pump number 1 white. And I want the value to be set at 0 when I open up the model. Once I'm finished with that, I can hit this little X here to close it. Now I want to make another widget for the next data box. We'll name this one pump 2 yellow. That's the color of the bottom of the pump, which the turtles are going to react to. So we have our two data boxes. Let's click on Lock Interface and add the code for those before we come back and do the graph. So scroll down to the world page, and what we want to do on this page is go to the interface drawer and click on Set Data Box, and first we'll choose pump 1 to 0, and then we want to set the other data box to 0 so that the data boxes will reset every time we reset up our model. And then the data actually needs to be collected by the turtles on the Turtle tab. So we're going to come over here to our pump procedure and tell it that each time a turtle hits a yellow and performs the pump procedure, it should count that. So still in the interface drawer, we want the set data box again. Sometimes this is okay. I have my data box block clicked in now, and this is pump yellow, pump number 2 yellow. So I want to be sure that the yellow data box is being set to increase each time a water turtle hits the bottom of the pump. So we will need this data box code, and we will need from the math drawer an addition sign. So we want to set the data box to whatever the yellow data box already was set to, plus 1. So now, each time a turtle hits the yellow data box, we should count 1 unit of data. So let's try that. I click on Run Code and come up to the setup. Both my data boxes show 0. And as I go forever, my yellow pump data box is counting, and my white one is not yet, because we have not added the code for that. So let's go down and do that. What I'm going to try to do is copy this one, copy paste. It copied more than I wanted, so I'll throw these extra blocks away. And this one goes down here below. Okay, I have my data box clicked in again, but now I have to be careful to change it. I don't want to count the turtles that hit the yellow data box. Now I want to count the ones that hit the white data box and set the white data box to plus 1. Okay, so let's try that and see if both of our data boxes are working now. So they reset to 0 on the setup, and now they're both going to count water droplets. Now that we have our data boxes, let's try to look at the same data in a graph form. So again, click on Edit Interface and Create Widget. This time we want a line graph. Let's move it down here out of the way and click on it to label everything. So we want to call this water pumped is the title of our graph. The x-axis is ticks, or time, the number of times it goes through the model. The y-axis is water from each pump. And then series 1 is what's going to count one thing. So we want this the label for this to be white pump. And I'm happy with the red color for the white pump. I'm adding a series for the yellow pump. And let's make that a little more yellow, yellowish green. I don't want it too yellow, or we won't be able to see it. See how that is? Okay. Once you have this all how you want it, close the X and lock the interface. Now this is defaulting to show you a chart instead of a graph. So this button here on the upper right side of the pump widget switches it back and forth between chart and graph. So now it looks like we've got a chart, but again, we haven't added the code to make the chart work. So back on the World tab, notice that on the World tab, we don't have any Forever button. We only have a Setup button. So we need to start by going to the Interface drawer and getting a While Forever Toggled button. And this is where we're going to put in the information for our graph. So we want to add data to the line graph, identify the name of our graph with the drop-down arrow, and then identify the series. So let's start with the white pump. The x-axis is going to be ticks, time, which is in the environment drawer. The clock is what counts the ticks in this program. So the x-axis will be the clock. The y-axis, back to the interface drawer, will be, we want to count just the data from the data box. But we want to be sure that we get the white pump with the white data box. Okay, let's see whether that works. We should see data for just one of the pumps now. And there's our line, counting the water for that pump. So again, you can, if you're careful, you can copy and paste this block, and being absolutely positive that you change what needs to be changed. So in this case, we want to change it to the yellow pump and use the yellow data box. Now we need to do a couple more things to make our setup code work correctly so that our graph resets every time. So one is to clear the line graph from the interface drawer. I want to put this in right above everything else there and tell it which line graph. And then I also need to reset the clock, reset the tick counter in the setup. So I'm going to put in set clock to 0. All right, let's come up and test it out. Everything looks cleared from the setup. And then as we run the forever, We should see our data boxes counting and both lines on our line graph are working. So now you can use these data collection instruments to design an experiment that would collect data on how water is being pumped differently from one pump to the other. Thanks very much. Happy coding.